Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us from all around the globe. I'm Sudeshna, your favorite host and SDN ambassador, and I'm super excited to welcome you to another episode of Community Voices. And today we have our very special guests who will be sharing with us their experience about SDN Awards, what it is like to be a finalist and a winner, and also their entire journey of what it is like. And if any one of you is excited about submitting your project, I'm sure you have a lot of questions. So just put it in the chat and we will bring it to our amazing panel and they would have a lot of insights to share. So let's welcome our panel. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, hola.
Hello, ciao.
We were just talking about how we're joining in from different parts of the world. One is from Italy, Barcelona, then we have Canada, Calgary, I believe that is correct. And then I'm joining in from India. So we have covered pretty much the entire globe right now.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Good night to people who are listening from their beds. All right. So I guess we'll do a quick round of introductions so that our audience know who you are. And then we'll dive into some of the questions that people have been asking us for so long in our Instagram and all over the place about SDN Awards. And of course, we're super excited to hear about your personal experience. So, Sydney, can I ask you to start us off with a quick self introduction?
Absolutely. So hello, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Sydney Johnson. My pronouns are she, her. And I am calling in, as Sudeshna said, from Calgary, Canada. I'm the head of design at J5 Design. We are a Canadian service design studio, which has a few offices around Canada. But my job is really about people and delivery and really thinking about how we do service design and how we're pushing that practice. And so I've been lucky enough to be a part of on the projects that have been finalists for the last couple of years, and our studio has been a part of the awards for 3 years now. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Oh, and then I'll pass to Christopher.
Hey, really lovely to connect with all of you. Kristofer Kelly-Frere, he, him are my pronouns. I'm the creative lead at J5, so I get to work alongside the incredible leadership of Sydney. As she mentioned, we're a service design studio in Canada. I'm originally an architect. I worked in science centers and museums, and then municipal government, public health, and now inside the world of private consulting. And part of my role here is to hold the question, what does it mean to be creative in our practice? And so things like the SDN Awards are a really powerful venue for us to both learn from the global community and to share out some of the thought leadership that we think that we're a part of, and ask great questions and to try to connect in with other folks. I've actually been connected to SDN since I'm like an OG, kind of, I don't know, 2018. We had a project that was a finalist when I was working inside municipal government and still didn't really understand what service design meant or was. And since then have learned a ton and I'm really excited to participate today. And I will pass it to Sara.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sara. I'm from Thoughtworks. Thoughtworks is a software consultancy, and we do design, engineering, and AI. I've spent 10 years in the company in many different roles, but I did start as a designer. So I'm still a designer at core, even if today I cover a different role. I am head of strategy and innovation and do a lot of AI-related work with user-centric experience at core. And I'll pass to José.
Cool. This might be like a continuation because I'm also from Thoughtworks. I'm José or José Manuel, which is the longest version of my name. I am based in Barcelona and I've been pretty much all of my life as a designer. through different practices in the design field, right? Like graphic design, then interaction design. I think our names has evolved so many times, but I think naturally I move on to search design because actually one of the projects that we started to work on internally at Thoughtworks, and maybe the one that we will be discussing a bit today, it's been having to do a lot with service design. So I would say that I'm not a formally trained service design trained by schooling, but I've been learning and doing by practice, and I'm amazed by the amount of things that you can learn on the service design field just by doing. And sometimes it can start with your very own organization, like it happened with us at Thoughtworks.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you, everyone, for sharing a little bit about yourself. And Christopher had already started this because my next question was about, hey, how did you get to know about SDN? And really, what's your SDN origin story? So, does anyone want to kick us off over there? Or Christopher, do you want to add more as you pass it to someone else?
Let's hear from someone else first. Sydney.
Great. I'll take it. So my SDN origin story. So I actually joined SDN first as a student when I was doing my master's in digital experience design, and a lot of that, the program that I was in was service design focused, and so that's when I first kind of connected to the community and wanted to be a part of it. I was living in the UK at the time, and then I moved back to Canada, where I'm originally from. And they had the Toronto Global Service Design Conference. I think that was, I want to say 2018, 2019. And I had been to some of the Canada chapter ones before that. No, must have been later than that. I don't understand time. But anyways, they had the global one in Toronto, and I got really excited because, often we don't always have them on in my hemisphere. And so I got to go there and attend that, and then just kind of had wanted to come back ever since to, the global ones, and started to kind of attend regularly once I was in the place to do so. So I kind of like Christopher, I have been in and around for a while, but just really connected over the last 3 years. And I'll pass it to Jose again. Let's change up the order.
Great. Yeah, I have a hard time to remember my origins with the service design network. I believe probably it was at one of the conferences that I attended before. Maybe it was interaction design or any other conference, but I do remember something very well, which I got a hold onto the Touchpoint journal, actually, which is the service design network journal. So probably that was sitting somewhere in one of the conferences. And I remember well that I was reading some of these pages and feeling very related to the work that I was starting to do, but I wasn't quite aware that this was even called a discipline. Maybe I'm talking like 10 years ago or so. And probably it was something like that because I'm based in Barcelona, and we didn't even have a chapter in Barcelona or in Spain. Maybe it's about time to start one. But I think probably it was through conferences. And then I remember actually Googling the Touchpoint magazine, and then discovering the website as well for Service Design Network. And ever since has been a bit of a reference for me to understand what was going on in the field, trying to understand about different conferences, and of course about the Service Design Award. I'm going to pass that on to Sara, which is
last but not least.
Last but not least, exactly.
So I learned about Service Design Network from my mentors. So I was very lucky in my career to meet a few people that really got me to learn about service design. And actually, I should thank them here. One is Mike Tiffany, and the other one is Diana Dorna. They really set the foundations for me to learn about service design. And Mike told me about the network. And since then, it's been a point of reference and an aspiration in terms of the award.
All right, thank you, Sara. I think everyone had like their own versions of where they joined in from, either through Touchpoint and then the conference, and also like just meeting other mentors and members and then becoming part of this community. That is incredible. I am super curious about like as you all got to know about the conference and like just be a part of SDN. How did you start thinking about, oh, we're gonna submit something for SDN awards, and that might be like, hey, this project could actually win as an award. Did you? What was your thought process actually? Let's dial back to that. Sydney, can I nominate you?
Sure. I'll start them all off. Well, it's kind of it's a connection story between me and Christopher because we were both working at J5. The first time I submitted, he submitted as he mentioned to the previous organization, but we just kind of, I remember it was really last minute, it was like right before the deadline, and we just kind of rallied the troops and we said, okay, we're going to put in a few different projects. Like, let's just go for it. Let's just see what happens. And so I put forward a project, Christopher put forward a project, a few others in the company did. We just like had a big group chat and all just were like, we haven't done this before. We're going to try it this year. We're going to see what happens. And that was the year that Christopher's project won, which was really exciting for us. And then, so I think that first year, Christopher, feel free to disagree with me. I think we were just like, let's just get something in. Like, we just want to try, like, this has just come up on the radar. It was like very serendipitous. And then since then, I think we've said, okay, we've done it again every time since. And I think we've from there have thought, okay, what really are the projects we want to put forward this year? What are the things that we're going to highlight and why? But I remember the first time it was just like, let's just try and something might happen.
Christopher,
maybe
yeah. Yeah, I want to tag in a little bit on that too. I think, it's always interesting in a studio or in a team environment to try to understand what something means to a whole community, right? Because an award can mean something to your business development arm. It can mean something different to your practice arm. It can mean something different to your team. And I think one of the things that always gets me excited about communities of practice like SDN is it's the chance to name and share something that you want to think more about. And so on the back end, as we were thinking about what projects to put in, one of the discussions that I remember us having, Sid, was like, well, what do we have that feels different, that feels like there's an interesting story here to share? And then strategically, which of those stories tie with the conference theme that's coming up next? Because that is a really important part of trying to be sort of in a thought leadership community, is understanding like, where is the edge, where is the horizon, and how is what you're doing contributing to it? And the projects we put forward that year we were really thinking about capacity building. And that, I think that was a theme across several of our submissions. And, the projects actually sort of mutually reinforced each other. So even though one that had, that I was leading, it was deeply informed by the work that Sid had been doing. And actually the next year, the project that we were nominated as finalists for was sort of had kind of leapfrogged. It was they're all kind of connected. And so picking an idea that means something to your curiosity has been like a really important part of trying to decide what to submit for us. I don't know if you'd agree, Sid.
Yeah, I guess maybe I'll just tag in one more thought there. Is I think that it's about what of our projects is really advancing the field. Like, I think you can do a really excellent service design project, but it might not be the project that I would submit unless it's like saying something about the industry or the practice, or not because it's not a worthy project or it's great. I just think that part of the reason for awards like this is to demonstrate something different, or to be inspiring, or to approach something differently. So that has been our studio's approach to the awards.
And I also love how you said that you connected it with the theme of the conference for that year, because it really, I guess, it takes a discussion that you've been having in a room with your company and with your colleagues, and then brings it to a global stage. So you're also seeing so many more perspectives and really amplifying, hey, that we are doing some cutting edge work in this field and bringing that into visibility at a global platform. So I love that we have two people from the same organization, because we get two different stories that are coming out. Like, hey, did we really do that, or what was it like? So Sara, tell us more about your project, and Jose, feel free to elaborate on that.
So Thoughtworks is a consultancy, so we do work with clients, but this specific project was an internal one. So we submitted it as part of our internal IT department. And it meant a lot for us because sometimes IT departments are a little bit like overlooked, even if both Jose and I work both for the IT department, then for clients. And we saw a lot of value in the work that we were doing because the project lasted about 9 years. So for that long, Jose and I stitched together different initiatives into one consistent narrative of organizational transformation. And there are all funny stories of me going on maternity leave and Jose coming into taking the role. And then I became a manager and continued to help stitching things together. So it was definitely like a labor of love and collaboration, and it meant something for us to show that to the organization that was service design and a good one, because that's not how the organization called it. So for us, getting to the finalists was huge because it was an external recognition of that holistic approach to initiative that otherwise would have been scattered, while we were able to build them into a narrative to improve the overall employee experience. Jose, what did I forget?
No, I think you summarized it very well. I just want to reinforce sometimes the importance that you have to evangelize service design within your own organization, right? So we knew that this was the project. We, as Sara said, it lasted many years, but we knew that we were building something that was having a continuous narrative, and it was evolving, and it was generating more and more data. So the storytelling was actually proving our initial hypothesis. So we had the benefit of time, but at the same time, naming that was very hard for us in an organization where maybe service design wasn't the priority. So I think at the end, being a finalist, it was a huge way for us to not just evangelizing, but showing the value and the recognition that what we did was service design delivering real employee value, but not only, also business value, which at the end is what it counts, right?
And one thing we share in common is with Sydney and Chris is that we also applied multiple times.
That's correct.
So we did apply in 2020, but after probably we were three years through, and but we didn't have enough cycle time to show that our initiative had proved a very like a strong business impact. So we monitored the data for years, and only in 2024 we were able to clearly measure the data. But at that time we were a public company, so there was a lot of data that we actually couldn't share. So we were building the document with the data and then getting the PR and comms to cancel them, and then we had to go back to the drawing board. So definitely take a lot of resilience to get to a point where we knew we had something and we had the data that showed the value, the business value of our work.
That is incredible. And I know both of your projects are professional projects, so this probably just came in now conversation about the business impact of it. A lot of the times you're not able to show because of confidentiality reasons. How do you send in submissions by when you're trying to give the number and show how much positive impact you have, but you don't have everything that you can share? How do you navigate that situation?
I can add to that a bit, because of course that was a struggle when describing our work, right? Especially there's a section on the SDN award which is about impact, and impact nowadays it has to be explained both through qualitative but also quantitative. So as Sara mentioned, in our case, we were amassing a lot of data that we were like really, really dying to show it to the world to prove it, right? So I would say in that case, when you have privacy issues and you cannot share, of course, exact numbers, you can still go back to the storytelling, right? There was a hypothesis that you wanted to prove. And even though you cannot really show the number, you can go back and call the things that you wanted to prove and maybe say a range of the percentage that was increased for the positive without actually showing the actual data, right? But it's very interesting because we live in this duality of having to prove things, but at the same time being cautious about the confidentiality of the information. But I would say, or my suggestion would be always go back to the storytelling and go back to what were the business impact that you wanted to create, which usually you can try to collect them in 2 or 3 bullet points. For us, it was something that started many years ago. But in order to describe the impact for the SDN award, we went back to these business goals that we had at the beginning, and we were able to relate some of these insights without the need of telling the exact data, but still going back to the storytelling that we were trying to say. What for us was unlocking growth opportunities within the entire organization to drive that business impact.
That is wonderful. Thank you, Jose. So, Cindy and Christopher, I guess what is an equivalent in terms of what did the project mean to you? For ThoughtWorks, it was kind of internally understand, recognizing that, hey, we did an entire system holistic project that was service design oriented, but what it might have a completely different meaning for you. What did the project mean for you?
Do you want to talk about the same project or different projects, Sid?
Well,
Because you also talked about multiple times, right? So, oh, sorry.
yeah. We can maybe talk about the one that we submitted in 2024. Also, because it was the one that we also submitted that Christopher and I were both a part of. So that's the one we can both talk about. But I think there's a piece that I think is that I relate to Jose and Sara with, which is that there's a lot of times sometimes, and I'm often explaining this to other designers, where it sometimes doesn't feel like service design, and yet it is. And that's true for like, internal projects, external projects. There's some, like, it's our language as a community, as a network, but that doesn't mean it's everyone's language or everyone's understanding of exactly what that means. And so being able to tell the story of, like, our project, we had worked in collaboration with interior designers, we had worked in collaboration with healthcare leaders for that particular project. And I don't think that the other groups who we were a part of initially would have said, oh, that we really need some service designers in there. But we came in and said, like, okay, this is the value that we can provide as bridging the gap between these different disciplines, and actually that's service design. And that's what we're going to talk about in our submission as being how we're thinking about service design this year, and how we're pushing the practice a little bit is as being a translator, and service design as bridging discipline gaps, as I mentioned. And so, but we don't know if anyone else is going to agree with that perspective. So kind of like, being a finalist in that case is like, oh yeah, okay, we did hit something here. We have like expanded how we're thinking about this, and someone out there, someone in the network is also seeing that that perspective. And so it is validating in that sense of, this is part of service design too, and what we were doing, fits in that bubble.
Yeah, well, just to kind of tag in a little bit on that, I think something that we're learning to do that makes being a part of these sort of thought leadership conversations easier is to be disciplined about naming the impact we think we're going to make at the beginning, holding that kind of lightly through the project, and then being able to do the reflective work to understand qualitatively and quantitatively if we've made that impact. And that also means being a little bit more disciplined in terms of doing a pre and a post. So we often, in the project that we submitted last year, we were able to, along the journey, we surveyed the participants about whether or not they felt like the process was reducing the risk, whether or not they felt like their insights were being incorporated, whether it felt like it was and also measuring a kind of tangible impact in terms of speeding up the collaboration between multiple disciplines, which are all things service design is supposed to do. But making sure that at our interim touch points, we're like pulling up a Menti and surveying the participants to get some quantitative and qualitative data. Things like that become really important. And they also make it easier to tell the story to clients. We actually just did this yesterday for a different project, Sid and I, to tell the story about like all the things that we've done together. Because the final deliverable to them feels very simple and clear. And they're like, oh yeah, of course, that's super obvious what we should do next. And you forget that there were all of these cycles. I see some laughs on the screens, all these cycles where it was not clear, where there were different strategic paths. And I think something we bring into our practice is a little bit of developmental evaluation. That's the term that gets used in North America around social innovation, which is a fancy way of saying, as you go, and I don't know if this shows up in Europe as much or in India, but like as you go, you need to document the decisions you're making, the impact that is occurring, the learning that's happening, and all the roads you didn't take. And I think that when you have a bit of discipline there, it's easier to look back and to say, oh, wow, here's how this might fit into the story that I'm hearing people talk about right now, the questions that we're all asking. And that lets us be excited about the work and share that value. And also, I think there's a side benefit too for clients in that for many of them, whether it's in the for-profit or the not-for-profit or the government space, they are looking for evidence that the thing that they bought or the thing that they're championing or the thing that they're participating in is good. Like to the point that I have, in a previous role, I have put an award, like the award didn't have an award paper. We ended up printing one off so that we could present it to city council to be like, look, this thing you were a part of won an award and it's physical, it's tangible, because as those government leaders needed to believe. And, half of our work here in complex projects is getting people to believe.
That is an incredible point, Christopher, just in terms of how that visibility really also assuages, I guess, people who are not very familiar with our discipline and can be accepting of, hey, this is a different way of doing things, and it really helps us navigate. Did that, was there any similar case for you in terms of, from an industry perspective, what did being like a finalist or a winner of the SDN award portray as from a business or client perspective? Did it change anything? Did it shift any kind of dialogue that you were having internally or externally?
Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
So I think for us was, first of all, like as Sydney said, that internal validation, like that imposter syndrome, calmed down and said, we owned it. Now it's on paper. That was actually like, it was not all in our head. So the validation was the first step. The second was awareness. Awareness in the organization about that language and those processes that sometimes people call facilitation, but it didn't have attached the service design tag. I think after that, it gave us more confidence. So the IT department that year was won/nominated for 3 awards, because we said, okay, maybe we're good at this. Let's do more of it. And because the process of writing the skills to write the words are actually different from the skill that you need to execute the work. And we said, we have all those skills to write good award-winning content, let's use it. So we applied for more award and got even more recognition in other fields, like in the talent development space and in user experience innovation. And it was, I think, really powerful from both to credentialize our IT department, but also at an individual level for a lot of the also younger people that work with us. It definitely came with a lot of benefits and clearly the recognition from the company leadership.
I want to add to that sometimes, of course, service design is a discipline that touches so many disciplines and can have so much impact in an organization. For us at the end, after 9 years, it was a process of organizational transformation. And because of the visibility of the award, etc., and the impact that we could demonstrate, we were also invited to a couple of conferences to talk about organizational transformation through the work that we did. But of course, we did it through service design. But sometimes it's not needed to really use all the jargon that we use internally, because the impact for our organization is about the benefit that this change brought, rather than just the benefit that we were able to deliver through service design. We know it's great, but sometimes we have to be very aware of the audience that we have in front of us, not to create barriers with the jargon and the language.
I wanted to answer your question, Steshna. Like, I think the clients that we have worked with and have been happy for us to submit projects that we have done with them and be open about that. First of all, has been really fantastic. Like, we've had a lot of support of them saying like, yeah, go for it, like, see what happens. And then when we have, for each time that we have been finalists or have won, they've been really, really excited about it for themselves as well. Like, it's given them, they've been like, wow, we weren't expecting this. We didn't know that this award system existed. And now this project that we initiated and that we were the client for also, like, they also get recognition from it, even though, you know, they're maybe not as connected to the network, but it still feels exciting for them. And we find that they often are proud. But the thing I want to talk about in terms of impact is actually not the impact of being a finalist or being a winner, but actually going through the process of submitting the award has a ton of really good benefits internally at our studio and with other clients and what we're talking about, because it forces us to create a really solid case study. We often submit a video as a part of our submission, and so we'll make something for that. We then have a short version and a long version and a visual version of a project that we're really proud of. And so actually, I think the biggest impact for us is all the other ways in which we use that material to talk about our work. Whereas sometimes if you don't have that thing that's saying like, okay, here's the deadline and you have to do that by that, we, you know, can forget to document everything perfectly. And so the actual award submission has been really powerful for us as a studio to actually force us to write all those things down, tell the story in a really beautiful way, and not just get sucked into the next project. So that's what I think the biggest impact is. Kristofer agrees.
I absolutely love that.
Just kudos.
Okay, so you've started that, like, the process is super important. So I'm going to ask you like a closing question because we're coming at the end of our session. What are the 3 factors that someone who is now, you know, going to submit their project for an award and they're thinking, hey, should I even be submitting this project? What would you ask them to think about? Jose, I see you nodding. So maybe you want to go first.
Oh, okay. Well, I can start with a few of those, and maybe Sara can also build on that, right? So we were reflecting this morning about that a bit, and for us, one of the most important ones was about collecting data. And that goes back to what Kristofer was saying before, right? Having good practices into collecting, constantly checking, etc. So for us, we created systems to start collecting that data. And because the project lasted so long, we saw that this is one of the key points in order to have it ready when submitting for an award. Another one will be having a strong storytelling. And of course, this is not about making up a story, right? It's a story that is supported over time. But referring back to this story constantly, it ties back and actually makes the data shine as well. Because sometimes numbers are what they are, but they need to be wrapped up with both qualitative, quantitative, and the story itself, right? And of course, the story has to be an honest story. And maybe the third one, Sara, you want to talk about the key factor that worked for us?
So the key factor was also the business value articulation. So I had passed from being a designer to more of a manager, head of a department. So I was very used to what Chris described, like putting controls in place to ensure that I get the data, that I can demonstrate the ROI to the business. And we were able to incorporate all of that make the proposal really strong. But my advice is, even if you don't have those things yet, participate anyway, because you build the skills. So that is not something that that like it takes practice. And how many drafts we've written, I don't even remember. I think we went back to the whiteboards many times. Sometimes we thought it was good, then got some external perspective and from other colleagues, and were like not good enough, and came back. So I think we rewrote them many times until we felt it was sharp enough. And the first time we didn't even win, but the practice of doing it has a lot of additional value beyond the award. Like Sydney was saying, the documentation, it's good for you, for the business, for your portfolio. It teaches you to document things better, to ensure you have those controls in place, and to talk about your work in a way that is understood by others. So if you're unsure, do it.
Yeah.
Love it. Christopher.
Yeah, I so many great things have already been said, so I'll kind of stick on one point if I had to say one thing. And this applies both to submitting for a conference presentation or for an award submission. I believe that practice is a forward-looking practice, not a backwards-looking practice. It's very easy to try to say, what have I done that is worth talking about? And instead, I would encourage people to think about, what am I doing that I want to think more about? So if you're submitting an award, you should be writing a case study that's on a topic that you want to care about in a year. That like is something that you're intrigued about pursuing, like the role of ServiceTime, the impact you can have, and to find a nugget like that means something to you, so that you're intrinsically motivated to do all these hard things. Look back, find the data, talk about it, plan it, do all that. And the same thing goes for a good conference presentation. Like my best advice to anyone on the call, if you're thinking also about submitting to, say, next year's SDN conference tracks, would be to go to the conference this year, and then right after it's done, think about, what is the thing I want to spend another year thinking about, and then submit that. And so that would be my advice, both on the case study side and on any other kind of thought leadership. It needs to be forward looking.
That is incredible advice. And everyone, please listen, because Christopher was our speaker for last time. And then, though the speaker dates are out right now, but if you're considering submitting for the award or for next year, like, keep this in mind. This is incredible insight that you have there. And Sydney, would you like to close us for this session?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a couple points that just to add on to all of the great ones that have been said. Kind of coming back to what I said in the front, my advice for people submitting is not just to think about yourself, but think about how your project is changing the field, how it could be impacting others who read it, and how it is, pushing our definition of service design, or thinking about something in a new light or a new way. And that could be something as like reframing an IT project as a service design project, or like showing the connection between that, as my friends here in the call have talked about. It could be something about, as we talked about in our project, about how service design is interacting with other disciplines. I think the point of awards, of conferences, of professional networks like this is not just to maintain the status quo, but to be pushing the envelope on why we're doing what we're doing, and also how we're doing it. And so I think that that's a really interesting creative edge to what an awards could be. And then I just want to echo what Sara was talking about, which is that if you're thinking about it, just do it. Don't be intimidated. Don't think of like any imposter syndrome, oh, this isn't good enough, or oh, like I don't have a chance or anything. When we first submitted, I don't know what you were thinking, Kristofer, but I had no idea what our chances were, and we ended up winning. And I think that everyone has a story to tell, and everyone has a project that is worthy, if you're working in this field. And so I would really encourage you to just submit, and then, as we've talked about, there's a lot of benefits even if you aren't shortlisted or win. That's actually not even the biggest value. That's a great value, but it's not the biggest thing. So just do it.
Just do it. I love that. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And we did go a little bit on time. And everyone who took the time to stay with us and listen to this conversation, to amazing guests who shared their incredible insight. Thank you so much. And we will see you again next week on Community Voices. And have a wonderful evening ahead. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.